started with a nervous smile, shaky hands, and a voice so quiet that the audience barely caught her name. Courtney, just another shy, awkward schoolgirl from a small town in England, walked onto the America's Got Talent stage in 2018. Her posture said she wanted to disappear, her eyes darted nervously toward the judges, and even seemed unsure what to expect. The crowd waited murmuring, probably assuming this would be another timid audition lost in the mix. But what happened next changed everything. The moment the music hit, that shy little girl vanished. In her place stood a powerhouse, a voice dripping with raw soul and an energy that felt straight out of the 1970s rock scene. Within seconds, the audience was on its feet, jaws dropped, and slammed the golden buzzer. That was the birth of a viral legend, a transformation so shocking it became one of the most rewatched AGT moments in history. From trembling silence to unstoppable sound, Courtney didn't just sing, she detonated. Her name spread across continents overnight, turning her from a quiet schoolgirl into the internet's obsession. But behind that viral clip, behind the flashing lights and confetti, there was a deeper story, one of fear, doubt, and the fight to hold on to authenticity in an industry that doesn't wait for anyone. Because while the world saw a miracle moment, what came next would prove that fame isn't always as golden as the buzzer that launched it. The early persona, the shy, nervous girl behind the voice. Long before the world called her a prodigy, Courtney was just a quiet kid growing up in a small village in northeast England where dreams of stardom felt like they belonged on another planet. Her teachers often described her as reserved, a girl who preferred sketching lyrics in her notebook rather than chatting with classmates. She wasn't the kind of student who demanded attention, in fact, she avoided it. Her family later said she would hum to herself for hours but freeze up if anyone asked her to sing. That painful shyness followed her everywhere until one day, she realized that music wasn't just a hobby, it was her armor. She started performing at local talent shows, shaking so much that her knees literally knocked together, but the moment the music started, something clicked. Her fear transformed into fire. It was the beginning of the paradox that would define her, the painfully shy schoolgirl who could become a storm on stage. People who saw her early performances often couldn't believe it was the same person they saw moments earlier. Her transformation wasn't an act, it was instinct. Yet that dual identity became both her greatest weapon and her biggest challenge. Because while audiences loved the contrast, it also trapped her in a box, the shy girl who turns wild. A viral label she never asked for, and one she would spend years trying to escape. But before she could redefine herself, that unlikely shyness would help launch her into one of the most unforgettable moments in talent show history, and no one saw it coming. The explosive breakout, when the world finally heard her rule. The year was 2018, and America's Got Talent had seen thousands of singers come and go, but none quite like Courtney. When her name was called, she nervously shuffled onto the massive stage, clutching the microphone as if it were her lifeline. The judges smiled politely, perhaps expecting a sweet ballad or a quiet rendition of a pop tune. Instead, what they got was pure, unfiltered electricity. The moment the opening riff of Hard to Handle by Redding blared through the speakers, something inside Courtney snapped into place. Her shy demeanor evaporated, replaced by a fearless burst of sound that stunned everyone in the room. Her voice, raspy, soulful, and wild, roared through the theater like a thunderclap. Her body moved instinctively with the rhythm, channeling the spirit of Joplin with a confidence that felt decades beyond her years. Within seconds, the audience was screaming. Eyebrows shot up in disbelief and slammed the golden buzzer, sending a storm of confetti raining down. That single performance didn't just make her famous, it made her immortal in the world of viral internet culture. The clip exploded online, amassing millions of views within hours and hundreds of millions more over time. Even rock legends praised her, calling her a once-in-a-generation talent. But with fame comes expectation, and for a 13-year-old schoolgirl from England, that level of attention was both a dream and a ticking time bomb. Because as her fame skyrocketed, the world began to expect more, and much faster than anyone her age could handle. The tension between persona and reality, the pressure behind the spotlight. When the lights dimmed and the stage confetti settled, Courtney was no longer just a schoolgirl, she was a global headline. But behind the applause and flashing cameras was a growing tension between who she was and who the world wanted her to be. Fans adored her as the shy girl who turns wild, a viral label that became her identity overnight. Every time she stepped on stage, audiences expected that same explosive metamorphosis, the nervous teenager who would erupt into a rock goddess on command. But Courtney wasn't a machine. She was a 13-year-old kid still figuring out who she wanted to become. In interviews, she later admitted that being compared to Joplin and Tina Turner was flattering but exhausting. The pressure to live up to those icons, combined with the demands of fame, was enough to make anyone crumble. The industry quickly tried to shape her into a marketable product, pushing image over artistry and fame over growth. Courtney, still soft-spoken and introspective, found herself battling a caricature, the shy schoolgirl who wasn't allowed to grow up. Critics began asking why she wasn't releasing music fast enough, not realizing that behind the scenes, she was trapped between record label expectations and her own creative instincts. The louder the world cheered, the smaller her comfort zone became. But rather than surrender to the machine, Courtney made a decision that few young artists dare to make. She chose to disappear for a while and reinvent herself on her own terms. Reinvention, watch what she did next. When Courtney pulled back from the spotlight, many assumed she'd vanished, another child star swallowed by the industry's chaos. But what looked like silence was actually strategy. Away from the glare of TV lights and social media obsession, Courtney was rebuilding herself. She stopped chasing viral fame and started chasing authenticity. In small studios and makeshift rehearsal spaces, she began experimenting with sound, mixing her love of old-school rock and soul with a modern edge. The results slowly started to surface online. Songs like Breakable, That Girl Don't Live Here, and Monsters, each carrying the same emotional grit that first made audiences fall in love with her, but with new layers of maturity. In 2024, she began performing live again, not on huge talent show stages, but in intimate venues and industry events like the Clive Davis Pre-Grammy Gala, where critics described her as ferociously alive. Then came 2025, the year of her long-awaited comeback. She released DNA, a funky, defiant single that sounded nothing like her AGT days, teasing fans with talk of her debut album Little Miss Jagged. It was clear, Courtney wasn't trying to recapture her past, she was rewriting her future. The once shy schoolgirl had grown into a self-aware artist unafraid to take risks. But her transformation wasn't just musical, it was personal. Because while her sound evolved, so did the person behind the microphone, and that change would surprise even her most loyal fans. The persona collapses, the transformation of Courtney. By the time 2025 rolled around, the world was finally starting to see Courtney for who she really was, not a shy schoolgirl, not a viral miracle, but a full-fledged artist with grit, identity, and control. The transformation wasn't overnight, it was a slow, deliberate shedding of the old skin that the industry had wrapped her in. Courtney no longer leaned into the nervous teen image that had once defined her. Instead, her performances now carried confidence, even defiance, as if she was reclaiming every piece of herself that fame had tried to sculpt. Gone were the polite smiles and the hesitant stares at the floor. In their place stood a young woman who knew her worth. Her fans noticed the difference immediately, the swagger, the vocal maturity, the way she played with the crowd like she owned every inch of the stage. In interviews, Courtney spoke openly about how she had struggled with expectations, admitting that she had to forget what people thought I was supposed to be to rediscover her own sound. That statement resonated deeply with fans who had watched her grow up under a magnifying glass. Even critics who once questioned her staying power began to admit it. Courtney wasn't just surviving the fame machine, she was mastering it. And as the final pieces of her old persona crumbled, one question lingered in every fan's mind. If this is the real Courtney, just how far can she go from here? Today on What's Next, the future of Courtney. In 2025, Courtney stands on the edge of a brand new chapter, older, bolder, and far more in control of her destiny than the world ever expected. At 20 years old, she's no longer the girl trembling behind a microphone. She's a woman leading her own creative charge. Her latest releases, including DNA and the much-anticipated album Little Miss Jagged, reveal an artist unafraid to evolve. The sound is grittier, the lyrics more self-aware, and the attitude unmistakably hers. Critics describe her new era as a storm in slow motion, a deliberate, confident step away from being a viral sensation toward being a respected musician. Courtney now writes her own material, collaborates with producers who let her experiment, and performs live sets that focus on emotion instead of flash. Even her fashion and visuals have matured, edgy, authentic, and reflective of her no-nonsense personality. While her private life remains tightly guarded, her public image tells a clear story. This is an artist who's rewriting the narrative that once confined her. The little girl the world called nervous is now in complete command of her stage. And with her reignited and global media paying attention again, it feels like Courtney is finally stepping into the career she was always meant to have. But before we close this chapter, one final question remains. How did a shy teenager from a small English town turn the world's expectations upside down and come out stronger than ever? From shy schoolgirl to unstoppable force. So what really happened to Courtney, the timid schoolgirl who once froze on stage before unleashing one of the most unforgettable performances in America's Got Talent history? The answer is as powerful as her voice. She grew up, took control, and refused to let the world define her. Courtney's story isn't about overnight fame or viral moments. It's about transformation, the quiet, unseen kind that happens when the spotlight fades and the real work begins. She walked away from the machine that wanted to keep her a headline and came back as an artist with vision. She learned that being the shy girl wasn't a weakness. It was part of her evolution, the spark that made her stand out, but never the whole story. Today, she stands as proof that authenticity lasts longer than hype. She might not chase mainstream fame the way others do, but she's earned something more valuable: respect. Her performances are raw, her lyrics cut deep, and her confidence is now her trademark. From a trembling teenager on stage to a global symbol of self-belief, Courtney's journey shows that true talent doesn't fade, it grows louder with time. And as fans wait eagerly for her next move, one thing is certain: the world hasn't seen the last of Courtney. Because once a storm like her finds its rhythm, it doesn't just pass, it roars back stronger than ever.